I signed everything away with a smile, and now I sleep in a room that isn't mine. My name is Harold Thompson. I'm 94 years old, and this is the story of how I gave my children everything and lost everything in return. I used to wake up in a house that overlooked a quiet lake in Michigan. The mornings smelled like fresh coffee and pine trees. That house wasn't just brick and wood. It was 42 years of hard work. I built it after coming back from the Korean War. Every nail, every beam, every window carried a piece of my youth. I wasn't born wealthy. My father worked in a steel mill until his lungs gave out. I swore I'd build something better for my family, and I did. I started a small construction company at 32. Took loans nobody believed I could repay. Worked 16-hour days. Missed birthdays. Missed anniversaries. But I never missed a mortgage payment. By the time I was 60, we had 3 houses, a cabin by the lake, and investments that guaranteed comfort. My wife Eleanor used to joke that I worried more about providing than living. She would hold my face and say, "Harold, one day they won't remember the money. They'll remember how you made them feel." I thought I was doing both. We had 2 children, Michael and Sarah. Smart kids, good schools, college paid in full, weddings paid in full, cars bought, down payments covered. I didn't just give them love, I gave them security. Then Eleanor passed away when I was 81. The house became quiet, in a way silence shouldn't be. You can't imagine how loud loneliness is until you sit in it. That's when the conversations began. "Dad, you shouldn't live alone anymore. Dad, managing all this property is stressful at your age. Dad, let us handle things for you." It sounded caring, responsible, loving. Michael brought paperwork one afternoon, said it was just estate planning, said it would avoid taxes and make things easier later. Sarah nodded the whole time. She said, "We don't want strangers deciding what happens to your assets." I remember holding the pen, 92 years old, hands shaking slightly, trusting the 2 people I had sacrificed my entire life for. I signed over the lake house. I signed over the rental properties. I signed over the investment accounts. "Don't worry, Dad," Michael said. "You'll always have a place with us." I believed him. For about 6 months, things felt normal. They visited, they called, they helped with groceries. I thought maybe Eleanor would be proud of how close we all seemed. Then small things changed. Visits became shorter. Calls became delayed. Conversations became about expenses. "Dad, property taxes are rising." "Dad, maintenance costs are insane." "Dad, the market's unpredictable." Suddenly I wasn't the man who built the empire. I was a liability. One evening, Michael sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where I taught him how to count money in a piggy bank. He cleared his throat and said, "Dad, we think it's time you consider assisted living. It would be safer, more practical." Safer for who? Within 3 months, I was packing a single suitcase. The lake house, sold. The cabin, sold. My wife's rose garden, gone. And me, room 214, Maple Grove Senior Living, 94 years old, no property, no ownership, just memories, and the sound of doors closing softly behind people who promised they'd never leave. And the hardest part? I still love them. But now, every night I lie awake wondering, did I raise children or did I raise heirs? Room 214 has a window that faces the parking lot. Every morning I sit in the same chair and watch families come and go. Some bring flowers, some bring balloons, some bring guilt. You can tell the difference. At 94, you start noticing patterns. The nurses here are kind, kinder than my own blood sometimes. They call me Mr. Thompson. They ask about my war stories. They listen when I talk about Eleanor. They don't rush me when my hands tremble while holding a cup of tea. But kindness from strangers feels different than love from family. Michael visited once during my first month here. He brought a fruit basket and a tight smile. "Dad, you look good," he said. I nodded. "It's the lighting." He laughed. The kind of laugh you give when you don't want to sit too long with discomfort. He talked about the house sale, said the market timing was perfect, said they maximized the equity. Maximized. I built that house with my hands, and now it was a spreadsheet victory. Sarah called twice, once on my birthday, once at Christmas. She told me the kids were busy with school and activities. "You know how it is, Dad." "Yes, I know exactly how it is. I was busy once too, busy building a future for them." There's a man down the hall, Walter, 89. His story is almost identical to mine. Signed everything over to avoid probate. Ended up here when circumstances changed. We sit together sometimes in the common room. "You ever regret it?" he asked me last week. I took a long breath. "No," I said at first. But that wasn't the truth. I don't regret giving. I regret giving without boundaries. There's a difference. When Eleanor was alive, she used to say, "Harold, love doesn't mean surrendering your backbone." I thought she meant arguments. I didn't realize she meant protection. One afternoon, a young volunteer came to interview residents about life lessons. She asked me, "What's the biggest mistake people make with family?" I didn't hesitate. confusing generosity with obligation. She looked at me carefully. When you give everything away, I continued, you don't just transfer assets, you transfer power. At 92, I thought signing those papers was an act of trust. But trust should never require self-erasure. I don't blame my children entirely. Maybe I made it too easy. Maybe I raised them to expect rescue instead of responsibility. Every time they stumbled, I built a cushion. Every time they wanted more, I stretched myself thinner. Comfort can create entitlement if you're not careful. Do I think they planned this? No. But comfort changes people. Ownership changes people. Security changes people. And once the titles were in their names, I was no longer the provider. I was the reminder of where it all came from, and reminders can be uncomfortable. The hardest nights aren't the lonely ones. They're the ones where I replay the pen in my hand. I remember the exact weight of it, black ink, slightly smudged at the tip. Michael sliding the pages toward me. Sarah reassuring me, it's just paperwork, Dad. It was never just paperwork. It was leverage. Now, here in room 214, I own 3 things. A framed photo of Eleanor, my old military watch, and my name. That's it. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd kept just one property in my name, just one safeguard, not out of distrust, but out of wisdom, because love should be shared, not surrendered. And here's the part people don't talk about. When parents give away everything too soon, they don't just risk losing security, they risk losing respect. And once respect shifts, everything else follows. I'm 94 years old. I don't need wealth anymore, but I needed dignity, and dignity should never be something you sign away. 3 months ago, something happened that changed everything. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no confrontation, just a quiet realization. It was a Tuesday afternoon, rain tapping gently against the window of room 214. I was sitting with my old military watch in my hand, the one I wore when Eleanor said yes to marrying me. And I asked myself a question I should have asked 2 years ago. Harold, are you completely powerless? The answer surprised me. No. I may have signed away property. I may have signed away accounts, but I had not signed away my voice. The next morning, I asked one of the staff members to help me contact an attorney, not to fight my children, not to demand anything back, but to understand what rights I still had. You see, here's something people don't realize. Even when assets are transferred, circumstances matter. Intent matters. Capacity matters. Documentation matters. For the first time since moving here, I wasn't reacting. I was thinking. The attorney came to see me, a young woman, sharp, respectful. She didn't treat me like a fragile relic. She treated me like a man who built something. After reviewing everything, she explained that while I couldn't reverse every decision, there were financial distributions and agreements that hadn't been properly structured. There were protections that should have been in place, protections that weren't. That conversation didn't make me angry. It made me clear. I called Michael and Sarah, asked them to visit. They arrived together, nervous, defensive before I even spoke. But I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply said, I trusted you with everything, and I still love you, but I will not spend the last chapter of my life feeling disposable. Silence filled the room. Then I said something that shifted the air entirely. I am not asking for money. I am asking for respect. I explained the legal adjustments that needed to be made. A guaranteed monthly support structure, written commitments, transparency, not revenge, balance. For the first time, they looked at me not as a dependent, but as their father again. Maybe they didn't fully realize what their decisions felt like. Maybe comfort had blinded them. Maybe my silence had allowed it. But that day, something changed. And here's the lesson I want every parent, every grandparent, every provider to understand. Love your children deeply. Support them proudly. Help them generously. But never confuse love with surrender. Keeping something in your name is not selfish. Creating boundaries is not distrust. Planning wisely is not pessimism. It is protection. Because when you give away every ounce of control, you don't just risk financial insecurity. You risk becoming optional. And no parent who sacrificed decades of their life deserves to feel optional. I'm still in Maple Grove Senior Living. Room 214 hasn't changed, but I have. I sit straighter now. I speak clearer. I sleep better. Not because I got everything back, but because I got myself back. At 94 years old, I've learned something most people learn too late. Security is not about how much you give away. It's about how wisely you protect what remains. If you're watching this and you're planning your estate, pause. Talk to a professional. Put safeguards in writing. Keep dignity in your hands. And if you're a child listening to this story, remember this. Your parents are not stepping stones. They are the foundation. And foundations deserve honor, not abandonment. I'm Harold Thompson, 94 years old, not wealthy anymore, but finally wiser than ever.